We're all quite enthusiastic about the garden shaft, I believe. Why the garden shaft, Craig? What about it appeals to you? There was gold in the water sample. It's the end of the biggest treasure quest ever. The Lagadina brothers have accomplished the unthinkable, according to the History Channel. It was unexpected when they discovered the Oak Island treasure. We're not referring to a straightforward gold coin chest. We are referring to a multi-level room that holds artifacts from various centuries and continents. The most startling object is a piece of technology that is inappropriate for its era. What is it? A sword. A sword from Roman times. That is amazing. This item was discovered at Mahone Bay, close to Okawa, in the 1940s. Not only is a riddle resolved by this finding, the question of who actually traveled to the Americas initially is raised to a larger and more disturbing one. The wait of 2 centuries is ended. Finally, it did. The Oak Island treasure has finally been located after more than 200 years of seeking. It was recently confirmed by the History Channel, and it has nothing to do with a piece of wood or another rusty nail. The vault was broken into. However, what they found goes well beyond Marie Antoinette's lost diamonds or pirate wealth. One of the artifacts in the discovery is so improbable that it could completely alter our perception of North American history. Powerful organizations are said to have attempted to stifle this revelation for millennia. Check out the garden shop, folks. Look at that, man. Bubbles. Look at that. Wow. Whoa. What a surprise. Look at how well it's bubbling. The Laganina brothers actually took something out of that pit that you won't believe. It was a truly cinematic moment of discovery. At a depth below the garden shaft, in a location that geochemist Dr. According to Ian Spooner, the water contains unfathomably high levels of gold and silver. The last artificial barrier was broken by the team's enormous drill. The garden does definitely include air bubbles. All right, that's on the right side, just next to the actual rock. As they move through that tube from the drill rig into the garden shaft, we're applying pressure. Indeed, there was a thick coating of an odd material that resembled concrete combined with animal bone and an unidentified metal, rather than wood or stone. It was a substance made to withstand time and drills. The entire team was stunned by the sight they saw through the remote camera they sent down. Approximately 15 feet by 15 feet, the sealed vault-like room is made of enormous hand-cut granite blocks. There were other chests in this room, which the crew has named the Sanctuary. Iron-bound gold coins from Spain, France, and shockingly, the Roman Empire with the faces of rulers who ruled more than a millennium before Columbus were among them. We have found what we believe to be possible: ground voids or offset chambers. We are now beginning to gather some information for you all. How did Roman coins find their way to North America, 160 feet below the surface? History might be changed by that question alone. However, that was only the beginning. A collection of scrolls, all in sealed lead cylinders, were kept in another container. When one scroll was carefully examined early on, a star chart was discovered, but it wasn't a representation of the sky as we know it. It featured incredibly accurate drawings of constellations from the southern hemisphere. Even weirder was the fact that it was annotated in a language that linguists have tentatively determined to be a combination of Phoenician and ancient Hebrew. When you think about it, it's humorous. Right now, all of the experts who claim that the 90-ute stone was a hoax are most likely regretting their statements. But rather than a cross on a stone pedestal, the focal point and the object that left everyone speechless was a ceremonial sword. What is a sword? A sword from Roman times. That is amazing. This item was discovered near Mahone Bay, close to Ocala, in the 1940s. Gold encrusted with uncut stones encased the hilt. However, the black, non-reflective metal used to create the blade was ultimately identified by laboratory testing as meteoric iron. Ancient societies like the Egyptians valued the same sky metal. The distinctive two-barred cross of the Knights Templar was carved into the hilt. The kicker is this. This finding goes beyond the idea that the Templars arrived in America. It implies that they carried their holiest artifacts with them. It's no longer detailed, And I guess its weight is the main point. Seemed to be composed of bronze. Seems to have a good weight. In which year was this produced? It was somewhere in the 2nd or 3rd century AD. The Emperor Kodos gave the Sikhi gladiators this ceremonial gladius as a token of appreciation. Carefully positioned human remains were also discovered by the crew. The pedestal is flanked by 2 skeletons that appear to be on guard for all eternity. This was no trove of treasure. It served as a graveyard, a haven, and a legacy for future generations. The 6 lives that were cruelly lost over the 2-century quest seem to have been part of an epic drama that has finally reached its culmination because of this discovery. Though fortunately, the last discovery was achieved without more sorrow. The long-standing legend that a 7th person must die before the island divulges its secrets suddenly appears, uncannily prophetic. Ultimately, the mystery surrounding what was interred on Oak Island has been resolved. However, a much larger one has only just started. Finally, we now know what was discovered. But how were they able to achieve it? 200 years of fixation. You must realize the 2 centuries of sheer uncompromising passion that preceded this discovery in order to comprehend why it is such a huge deal. This was no ordinary treasure quest. Many people's life's work ended in misery, bankruptcy, and in some terrible cases, their last moments. The tale of Oak Island is one of human perseverance in the face of insurmountable adversity. It all began in 1795, when Daniel McGinnis, a teenager, saw an odd circular dip in the ground. Unbeknownst to you, that one observation set off a mystery that would captivate millions of others. He and his companions began excavating and came upon a layer of oak logs, only 10 feet below the surface. Then another at 20 and 30 feet, respectively. This wasn't natural. They knew. This was constructed by someone. The fabled money pit was the name given to that hole. The island attracted visionaries and business people over the course of the following 200 years. Numerous businesses were established. They arrived: the Oak Island Association, the Truro Company, and the Enslow Company. They all dug, but none of them succeeded. The flood tunnels, the island's most creative defense, were always beating them. A torrent of seawater would repeatedly surge in just as they believed they were getting near, filling the pit in a matter of minutes. It was an extremely intricate man-made booby trap intended to safeguard whatever was at the bottom. The magnitude of the endeavor is astounding. We're talking about huge cranes, intricate coffer dams constructed to keep the ocean at bay, and big steam-powered pumps. A treasure seeker named Robert Dunfield used a brute force strategy in the 1960s, bringing in large equipment and digging a crater that was more than 130 feet wide and 100 feet deep. He found no treasure trove, despite essentially reshaping a large portion of the island. All he discovered was additional proof of backfilled shafts and tunnels, a genius-designed maze. We are quite excited because we may be able to dig to the treasure, since we know that there is a tunneling system beneath there that might connect to the garden shaft. The human cost comes next. In the quest, 6 people have died. In 1861, a man was overtaken by the fumes from a pump motor, and in 1965, a father and son duo perished in a sad accident. The notorious legend that 7 people must perish before the wealth is discovered was born out of this history. It serves as a sobering backdrop to the recent triumph and serves as a reminder of the actual risks. The quest itself was as crazy as the hypotheses about what might be beneath there. Was it the pirate booty of Captain Kidd? France's missing royal jewels? Shakespeare's plays were written by Francis Bacon, as evidenced by his original manuscripts. I have consistently stated, or maintained, that Oak Island offers more than simply material wealth. It is more than that. Is it ancient knowledge, Is it the folios of Shakespeare? I'm not sure. But what on earth is book-binding material doing down there in the financial abyss? Or the most intriguing possibility of all, the Templars' lost treasure, which might include the Ark of the Covenant or the Holy Grail. The mystery only grew more complex with each new clue, such as the lead cross, discovered seasons ago, or the coded 90-foot stone. Until the Lagadina brothers took up the quest, each generation of searchers contributed a chapter to the mythology, carrying the flame of obsession forward through time. However, the traditional methods of dreaming and excavating were never sufficient. They required a fresh strategy. The code is ultimately cracked by science. The hunt was centered on blind hope and brutal force for generations. However, the Lagandina brothers completely altered the rules of the game. Now, it's a completely different situation. They realized that a 200-year-old riddle couldn't be solved with merely ambition and shovels. You had to combat mystery with hard science and engineering with better engineering. When they arrived, the island was transformed from a dig site into a huge outdoor laboratory. Take this. They began by using cutting-edge technology to map the entire island rather than just digging at random. To produce a three-dimensional picture of the events occurring deep beneath, they employed seismic scanning, ground-penetrating radar, and GPR. Something startling was discovered by these scans: an extensive system of tunnels and sizable artificial spaces, or voids. In the region that would eventually become the Garden Shaft, there was an oddity that resembled a big sealed vault. It wasn't a guess. Data had identified it as a target. Next followed Dr. Ian Spooner's water analysis. This individual was a real game-changer. His team discovered something amazing by collecting water samples from several bore holes over the island and analyzing their chemical makeup. Gold and silver concentrations in the water in the Money Pit area were hundreds of times greater than usual. We're all quite enthusiastic about the Garden Shaft, I believe. Why the Garden Shaft, Craig? What about it appeals to you? There was gold in the water sample. In a well-known on-camera statement, Spooner said the findings were unusual and suggested a significant subsurface supply of precious metals eroding. The treasure was physically seeping its signature into the surroundings. To put it another way, they were able to pinpoint the precise spot with remarkable precision as a result. Another crucial component of the puzzle was core drilling. The researchers pulled up core samples from more than 150 feet below the surface, using strong drills rather than conducting extensive destructive excavation. They discovered the early hints that sustained them for so many seasons in this way: chunks of ancient wood, paper scraps, coconut fiber, which is not indigenous to Nova Scotia, and even pieces of human bone. How do you interpret that? It appears to be wood at first glance, but it's really dense. How deep was this discovered to be? That was in the range of 160 to 165. It is hard and dense. It doesn't appear to be rock. It's not rock. Well, according to a geologist, it's not a stone. Is lignum? Vita possibility. Extremely dense timber. Extremely dense timber. Every core sample was comparable to a historical document. Long before the Money Pit was formally uncovered, dates from the 1600s and 1700s were regularly obtained through carbon dating of these materials. This was concrete evidence of a significant covert effort that took place on the island millennia ago. However, why start with the Garden Shaft? What did that signify for the first Money Pit? Then, the scientific evidence supported the team's hypothesis that the original pit was a deception intended to divert attention and deplete the resources of anyone who happened to come seeking. In a different, more heavily fortified compartment, the actual prize was offset. To eventually outsmart the island's original architects, a mix of strategic drilling, water testing, and GPR was required. Ultimately, the treasure was not discovered by chance. Science and technology eventually provided the team with a map to avoid the traps, which is how it was discovered. Although the discovery is astounding, what does it actually mean for our common history? The worldwide ramifications. They discovered it, then. An enigmatic sword, old scrolls, and a gold-filled vault. However, the true treasure is not something that can be valued. In the end, the items found in the sanctuary have the potential to drastically alter our understanding of world history. This goes beyond a footnote. We might have to rewrite entire chapters as a result. Let's begin with the most shocking revelation: the Templar relationship with the Knights. It was a fringe hypothesis for years, the sort of thing you see in movies. However, that meteoric iron sword, with their emblem on it, is concrete proof. The influential order, known as the Templars, was broken up in the early 1300s. According to legend, they managed to flee with their priceless gold and holy artifacts. They possessed the tools and expertise to cross the Atlantic more than a century before Columbus, if they carried it to Oak Island. This implies that pre-Columbian missions were planned, well-funded trips by one of the most influential groups in Europe, rather than merely isolated Viking outings. What about those coins from Roman times? That is truly perplexing. It disrupts the entire chronology of discovery. Were the ancient Romans able to reach the New World somehow? Alternatively, were these coins a part of a greater trove of Templar riches that had been gathered over ages from all over their Middle Eastern and European territories? It demonstrates, in any case, that objects from classical antiquity were located in North America for centuries before contemporary historians believed it was feasible. This is comparable, like discovering a contemporary automobile engine inside an Egyptian pyramid. However, you may not understand the importance. It simply shouldn't exist. The scrolls come next. They might be an invaluable source of lost knowledge if they actually include texts in ancient languages, star charts, and secret maps. Were they safeguarding scientific knowledge that, in medieval Europe, was deemed heretical? Or maybe they have the secret to the Templars' fabled global network and finance system. The sanctuary's name suggests that the chamber was guarding something considerably more significant than money. Secrets were being safeguarded. This revelation had an impact on European and Middle Eastern history, in addition to American history. We have found what we believe to be possible: ground voids or offset chambers. We are now beginning to gather some information for you all. It implies a degree of worldwide navigation and secrecy, and links the destiny of an enigmatic Christian military organization to the Canadian coast. That seems less like medieval history and more like contemporary espionage. But hold on until you hear what the doubters have to say about all of this. Already, skeptics are pointing fingers. Being cautious, some archaeologists remind everyone that extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. They contend that we shouldn't draw hasty judgments regarding Roman coins or Knights Templar until the items have undergone independent research and peer assessment. The island has been excavated for 200 years, after all. Didn't previous searchers have the ability to plant or drop some of these items? It's a legitimate query. Critics fear that entertainment may be overtaking science, and there is a lot of pressure on TV shows to have an epiphany. Then there are the other theories. It might not have been the Templars. Perhaps it was pirates, but they were far more advanced than we had thought. Perhaps during their colonial battles, French or British armies concealed it as a secret cache. Even though the story isn't as romantic, it is still a significant historical discovery. The story gets complicated at this point, since governments, treasure hunters, and historians are all likely to make claims. Who is the true owner of this treasure? The Leginas, the government of Canada, the descendants, if any, of the Knights Templar. Courtrooms, not muddy pits, will be the venue for that battle. Right now, the history books are being rewritten. However, does that imply that the Templars' hidden order is still out there, observing if they actually concealed this treasure? For more, like and subscribe.